some of us would say, I told you this during the season. However,
but did I?
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
He's got it! Jeremiah Smith!
The Michigan Wolverines shocked to college football. Whoa!
Some people gotta learn how to lose, man.
And after all that, it's Ohio State together at the mountaintop.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry. Proud to be part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
Let's say we talk a little bit of spring college football.
I'm so glad it's here.
This is the Rivalry Podcast. My name is Jace. That's Mr. JP. It's Michigan and Ohio State, a podcast dedicated to the greatest rivalry, not just in college football, but of course in all of sports. From River Radio Ministries, presented by our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction and proud partners with the boys over at Homage. Thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and, what do they say on YouTube? Like ring that bell. Or,
Smash that subscribe.
Is that still a thing? Or are people still doing that?
We can still make it a thing.
Oh no. On
Retro
YouTube,
stuff's coming back.
YouTube,
It's
social media,
now.
wherever you're listening right now at RivalPod and RivalPod.com.
Should we start with Ohio State? I feel like we should start with Ohio State.
Yeah, so we're talking spring games today.
Yeah.
And Ohio State did, what were they calling it, a showcase?
No,
or was
no,
this
it
just
was a
offense,
full-
defense?
It was,
right?
it was offense, defense, but it was a full game, so it wasn't a showcase.
So this is where, typically, during the regular season, I watch Ohio State obsessively because it's a hey watch. The same way that you do with Michigan. I'll be completely honest. I did not watch the Ohio State spring game, mostly because I didn't want to.
That's fine. This rivalry goes so deep, I actually found myself watching the Ohio State-Michigan lacrosse game. And I
love that so
I don't
much.
care about lacrosse at all. I was into it.
You're screaming terms that the TV
I did.
just learned 12 seconds ago.
I don't know the strategy behind lacrosse. Every single time they got it, I went, shoot it hard. Because I just assume as small as that ball is, it's got to be hard to defend. And it was because Michigan couldn't defend it. Ohio State won 9-8. Talking Ohio State football.
Talking lacrosse?
Yes, because I have the chance.
Man,
you know
we need,
me. If I have the chance to do it,
if
we have the chance to do it, I'm going to do it.
Should we talk college basketball real quick or no?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
What's that? Ohio State obviously doesn't know. Ohio State's spring football game was Saturday. About 40,000 plus ended up in attendance. The scoring, I don't even remember how they had it set up. It was a little bit different. Offense was as you would expect. Touchdown is 6 points. You have your extra point, your field goal. All that stuff's the same. Defensively, they had it set up to where if you had like a defensive turnover, you got X amount of points. If you got a 3 and out, you got this amount of points. It was set up like that. The defense ended up winning the day, 35-26. But I want to break down some of the guys that I felt really comfortable with walking out of the stadium on Saturday.
Because I think that's really where the spring game gives you an opportunity. We talked about this last year as well. We talk about this every year. What can you learn from the spring game? Nothing, and also some things. It depends. Yeah. It depends on what it is. And so one of the big things is going to be guys that predominantly, second and third string guys. That's like, oh, wow, like this guy took a really good step. So Bryson Cusdall was that last year for Michigan spring game. And obviously that did matter. They didn't get the win, but that did matter at the end of the season last year for Michigan. So yeah, who's sticking out to you from Ohio State?
I think you're 100% right. For the spring games nowadays, I feel like this year more than most, I could actually learn a lot from it because you've got a new play caller and Arthur Smith coming in. So I wanted to kind of see what plays they were going to draw up. That kind of vibe. Then I wanted to see, just because of the experience on the defensive side of the ball, I wanted to see how some of these depth pieces were going to play. We got a brand new kicker this year. I wanted to see how he was going to perform. And there were obviously some freshmen that were coming out that you would have liked to see. Some you didn't get the chance to. But there were a couple of guys that stood out. One, very, very obvious, Chris Henry Jr.
Yep.
I mean, 4 receptions, 96 yards and a touchdown. Showed every single bit of what you would expect from a guy like that. He's next up. He's going to be a solid contributor this year. He would be wide receiver 1 on probably a majority of other Division I programs. The guy, if he can stay healthy, is just going to be a force. He's somebody you're going to have to game plan for.
Will he be, and I know that there's like the X and the Y and the Z and all that stuff, but like just on the depth chart, is he considered wide receiver 3?
I think he's wide receiver 2.
So obviously Jeremiah, and then would you have him over like a Brandon Ennis?
I would have him over Brandon Ennis 100%. What I think, and I don't love saying this because I am rooting for Brandon Ennis, but there's been a lot of talk out of spring practice about a dude named White Lightning. Brock Boyd. He's another true freshman
Yeah,
wide
I've seen
receiver,
that.
3-star guy from Texas. Who's just been putting on a show. There are clips of Davison Igbinosun. I don't know if you saw this. Davison Igbinosun, known trash talker, love him. Holding his phone, something he does really well is holding things. And he's going. I knew you would appreciate that.
That might be a better burn than anything I've given on this podcast.
I know you would like
That's
that
amazing.
one. But he's holding his phone, and Jermaine Matthews is matched up with this guy, and he's kind of being a little disrespectful to Brock. And he's going, all right, it's this city versus where's this guy from? And then they had to tell him, and Jermaine Matthews gets absolutely cooked. Jermaine Matthews is a vet on the team, one of the expected leaders of our secondary, gets absolutely cooked in the end zone for a touchdown. And Brock Boyd hears this, runs over and starts trash talking Davison Igbinosun. I mean, the vibes were just immaculate. This guy's just been putting on a show. There's a lot of fire to his name. I honestly think Brandon Ennis is in competition with him. I think you're looking at a realistic situation where you might have obviously clear-cut Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver one. Yeah. Chris Henry, to me, is clear gap between 2 and 3 there. And I think Brandon Ennis is going to be struggling to get a spot with if the stuff with Brock Boyd turns out to be true. He had a decent day as well. This is kind of the put up or shut up year for Brandon Ennis.
For sure.
He's one of those guys that I just hope can turn it around. I know Jeremiah Smith and himself both came out and were like, this is my last year to prove that I'm a round 1 guy. I mean,
well, I've
technically you're not wrong.
Obviously, I'm coming at this from the Michigan side, so I'm looking at purposely through maize and blue lens here. But I've said now, at least for the last year, heading into last season, and then I would maintain, ain't nobody worried about Brandon Ennis.
No, and that's what
it doesn't, and it's not even about because you got to worry about Jeremiah Smith, and this will get no. I have not seen anything from Brandon Ennis that makes me think, yeah, this dude has it.
No, Brandon Ennis to me is
like a late round draft pick flyer. Sure, maybe, I don't know, but
he could. I think that's the ceiling for me.
If I'm no defenses are going to be like, guys, we really got a game plan because if we're bracketing off Jeremiah, we got to do that. Then it's going to leave Brandon Ennis open. Nobody's worried about that.
No,
the same way nobody was worried about Samaj Morgan last year.
Well, and I hope
or
that
the year before that.
I hope this season is wrong. I hope that he comes out and really balls out. But and I don't want to spend a ton of time on Brandon Ennis because there are so many other stars of the show. But he's the guy that I genuinely think is fighting for his job right now. Some other guys that I thought really impressed, and I do this. This feels similar to what I would have said last year with Bryce Underwood. And so I want to preface before I get into this and seem like I'm really, really hyping him up. Tavian St. Clair. This is a guy that a lot of people were hyped up, obviously, coming out of last year. We knew he wasn't going to be starting day one. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be starting this year. But next year, it's his team to lose, in my mind. And so you're looking at this guy really thinking, okay, what does the future of Buckeye football look like? And the potential's there. I mean, the guy's got a big arm. He's a big-bodied quarterback. Ohio State's been successful with those kind of guys. You saw it with Cardell Jones. You saw it with Will Howard. You had it with Craig Krenzel back in the day. These are the kind of prototype quarterbacks that have done well in this system. Tavian St. Clair ends up making some huge explosive plays. He was 9 of 21 for 166 and a touchdown. 2 of those passes that he completed were pretty lengthy passes. One was for 40-something yards to Chris Henry for a touchdown, and I want to say another one was a 30-something yarder that I think went to David Adolph. And so the passing stats are what they are, right?
It's a spring. This is again where, and I'm going to come back to this in the missions I do. It's a spring game.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about
what
your
you can
stat
learn
line.
is he has a little bit of problems with the accuracy.
Sure, yeah.
9 of 21 is not great. However, he had a cannon. There were some really nice throws where I looked at this guy and I thought, okay, this is a spring game. The running back room was a little bit dry for the start of it, so I knew they were going to be passing heavy anyways. I felt not like I wanted him, obviously, to start, but I looked at him and went, okay, you know what? Give him another year to learn the system, get adjusted, stay in the weight room, get some of these younger guys like a Brock Boyd, like a Chris Henry, let him get some more reps with them. I feel good. I really like the potential I saw from him. The last thing that really impressed me here, I loved the play calling. This was something that I know a lot of people last year specifically seem to be frustrated with, is the lack of involvement with our wide receivers. The Miami game, it was like massive tight end sets to try and run the ball up the gut. I mean, it was the same thing that cost us the Michigan game 2 years ago. I totally switched it up with Arthur Smith calling the plays. right off the rip, they're giving the ball to Jeremiah Smith. Some of the stats obviously aren't inflated because of what it was, but there was a pass early on. I want to say the first or second drive with Julian Sain where he connected with Jeremiah Smith, and it's a clear touchdown. I mean, it would have been the first touchdown of the game, but it's two-hand tap, so it's like the second they even got it, they were like, all right, everybody stop.
Nobody hit him.
Nobody do anything. Jeremiah, are you okay? Do you need another $10 million? And so
can we get you anything? Water, cheese stick, $10
they're
million?
bandaging him with $100 bills at this point. So I like to see him get involved early. I'm glad they didn't shy away from that. Julian Sain looked as advertised. I mean, he's the same guy you saw last year. Really comfortable on the pocket, really accurate. He made some nice throws. I also really liked, he actually did utilize his feet some, which I thought was a necessary thing. We don't need Julian Sain to go out there and be this dual threat quarterback.
Because he's not going to.
And he never will be. Yeah. Where he thrives is when the pocket is clean and he can step up into a throw and deliver an accurate ball. That's all we really need. But if the ground is open and you got to make a play, I want to feel confident that you're going to recognize that and go.
Exactly right.
He started to do that, so I'm fine with it. Now to the concerns.
Okay.
Because
I haven't enjoyed so far. I have enjoyed very little of this conversation.
So as much as
it's like, hey guys, Ohio State's good again. Well, that's
and
great.
I think that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Shocker alert. But there still were some questions that I had, and some of this was due to injury, where you had guys like another highly recruited freshman coming out, Legend Bay. He's a dude that's been making noise.
What a great name, also.
Honestly, put him in the Hall of Fame already. Retire the jersey, but. He's a guy that if you and there's been speculation with Ohio State and the number 2 jersey. Look at the guys who have worn it in the past. They don't really just give that number to anybody.
Yep.
It's what he's rocking as a true freshman. And so you're hearing a lot of hype about this guy. He's had some hamstring issues, I believe, so he hasn't been practicing. So he didn't touch the field. So the first thing I'll start off with was the running back room. Obviously, you've got Bo Jackson. You have Isaiah West. Those guys are going to be fine. I'm not confident in Isaiah West as a running back 1. I think he's a good complement back. So if Bo Jackson goes down, now I'm really starting to get a little concerned here because outside of that, there wasn't really anything that really stood out to me.
Well, if last year, now, and again, I'll grant you that obviously Bo Jackson's ascension was objectively, obviously not from the Michigan side, but objectively was like a very cool story, right? To come in as RB3 and a freshman and kind of make your way into the RB1 slot. But I'm also looking at it, and I said this last spring, where I said, yeah, this running back room is not going to be very good. And specifically talking about CJ Donaldson and I forgot his name.
James Peoples?
Sure, yeah. That's a person. That's a Peoples.
That's a Peoples.
If you will. Wow, I hate this podcast.
It's awful. We're in prime season 4.
But I was not impressed with either of them, and clearly I was right. And so if you're Isaiah West, I'm like, you were 4th on that depth chart with that I'm not concerned about Isaiah West.
Well,
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
But you can also make the point of like CJ Donaldson and James People were ahead of Bo Jackson, and there was a clear gap when you saw him on the field. And I think I was one of the people that early in the season last year, I'm like, it's got to be Bo. And I know preseason, I was all in on the CJ Donaldson train. I fell off that thing quick.
Bo Jackson's a really good running back. I think he's going to be good. I would echo and maybe even put a little more concern on, I'm still not sold on the Ohio State running back room, even if I'm sold on Bo Jackson.
The thing that makes me not ready to be like, throw the caution flag up and let's be really nervous about this is...
Isn't that what this is? Didn't you say this is a concern? This is literally a segment where you wave the caution flag.
No, only because Legend Bay has been dealing with injuries, and I think that he, going into that running back room, adds another piece of explosiveness to it. So... it's hard to say because I haven't seen him on the field, and it's also hard to say because I haven't seen him on the field.
Fair enough.
And so
yeah, sure.
it's that's my one thing that I stood out. Another thing, really basic, the kicking game. That was what last year haunted us. The year before, phenomenal, but still in the Michigan game haunted us.
What about the 2022 season?
My worst memories are all relating to kicking
Ohio
problems.
State's kicking, yeah.
So if we could find one that could just do it, that would be awesome. So Connor Hawkins comes in, he nails a 46-yarder. Everybody goes, oh man, this is great. We got a guy that can nail almost 50-yarders. Then he hooks a 43-yard one. And everybody goes, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, this is awesome. This is perfect. Exactly what we want. And so let's hope that we don't have to rely on that again. I mean, it is what it is. What can you really take away from that? He can nail some, he also can't. Same story to me. The last thing that I think is really the biggest issue to me is offensive line depth. And I've got another one after this, but it's more of a question that I had walking out of Saturday versus a concern. The offensive line depth, you had Phillip Daniels and Austin Searfeld both hurt. That meant Carter Lowe had to come in and take some snaps. He was the one that gave up a sack to Kenyatta Jackson. He also allowed pressure from Bo Atkinson that forced Julian Sain to scramble. Julian did score on that play, the one touchdown he did have, but it's not where he thrives. And so he struggled. And he's the clear-cut number 2 guy in line should they have to make a replacement. So I didn't walk out of there loving any of the depth rotation. I love the starting group that's going to be out there once healthy. I feel comfortable with that. They're experienced. But it's the backups that I'm going, okay, if something happens, which the past couple of years has, now I'm a little bit anxious around it.
That's what you see, right? I mean, one of the – not only are the teams that – tending to win championships. Not only do the teams that win championships tend to return a lot of veteran players, but I mean, championship teams have depth. It doesn't matter what the sport is. You've got guys behind your guys. And so, I think, and especially, I mean, we've talked about this before where, whatever you want to think about Jim Harbaugh, he nailed it when he said, hey, what's the one position in football that does not rely on any other position to be great, but everybody else relies on them? It's offensive line. Like, it starts and stops there. Your run game, your pass. I mean, everything starts and stops with your line. And so if that does become a depth issue, that's going to become a depth issue.
Yeah. The last thing that I walked out of Ohio Stadium being like, okay, well, I'm just curious on this because I don't know if I have it answered yet. Obviously, the defensive side of the ball is, to me, going to be the biggest question mark all season because you know what you got on the offensive side. But you're losing 2 of the most detrimental pieces. You're losing Sonny Styles. You're losing Caleb Downs, guys that are clear-cut, not only elite talent. I mean, they're going to go most likely top 5, if not top 10 for sure. You got Arvell Reese, but I'm more so talking from a leadership standpoint because Arvell Reese, phenomenal, elite talent, going to probably be a top 3 pick unless something drastic changes, which it probably already did while we're recording this. You're losing 2 guys that were clear-cut, smart, intelligent football players that were the vocal leaders of this defense. Who is stepping up and replacing that? I don't know if I see somebody right now that I'm going, that's the clear cut. That's the guy that gets the defense. That's going to be able to make the adjustments. That's going to be able to point people where they need to go. There's a lot of talent on this roster, especially on the defensive line. You got Zion Grady. You have Kenyatta Jackson returning, Edric Houston. Bo Atkinson's going to be good. You got Riley Pettijohn as a linebacker that I think is going to be a stud. You have a lot of talent. I don't know if I've seen a clear-cut defensive captain, a guy that you're going to go out there and all the guys' eyes are going to be looking at this guy when the going gets tough on what they need to do to lock down. Last year, you had 2 of those guys. They could have looked at Sonny Styles and he would have been the right person. They could have looked at Caleb Downs and he would have been the right person. Who is that guy going to be for the Buckeye defense this year? I don't know, but they're going to have to figure it out.
And my guess, too, is that a lot of that stuff is going to emerge out of fall camp and stuff. I mean, there's so much that's going on behind the scenes for whether it's Ohio State or Michigan or any program. There's so much going on behind the scenes that you don't get to see. And I don't know how much of that leadership are you going to see during a spring game anyway. Who knows? Can we talk about Michigan now?
We sure can. I have a lot. You want me to start?
Not really. So let me do it this way. Let me give you a couple names of players that I was really pleased with, like some surprise players, and then I'll let you ask whatever questions you want here, because it's kind of hard to talk about 7-6 spring game.
Yeah,
but
weirdly, we're gonna.
Here's the easy one for me. And if you listen to the spring game, watch the spring game, read recaps of the spring game, this is going to probably be the number 1 surprise player people mentioned, and it's Tommy Carr. So Tommy Carr, yes, that is Lloyd Carr, Michigan national championship head coach. That is his grandson. It's the brother of CJ Carr, Notre Dame quarterback, who performed very well last year as well. So Tommy Carr is, as the dust has settled here and Michigan's transfers have kind of, Nicolisi Fowler came in from Colorado State. Now he's not on the team and stuff has shifted around. It looks like Tommy Carr is pretty clearly the QB2. Obviously, he's not necessarily going to be pushing Bryce Underwood for reps at QB1. But this is where spring game is really helpful. I was telling you before we jumped on the mic, it's a 90-minute practice, and that's if you're in Columbus and you want to spend all day driving back and forth to do that, that's kind of a tough ask. But here's why spring games matter: is you get a guy like Tommy Carr who came in and looked fantastic. Had really good touch on the ball, really good accuracy, made a lot of really impressive plays with his legs, and has people kind of looking at him kind of on the sideline going, where did he come from? I mean, he's a local kid and all that stuff, but I don't think that the general fan, myself included, I don't think that many of us realize just how much talent he has already. And that's good because it comes back to the depth piece, right? God forbid something happens to your quarterback. Well, who's in the wings there? And at least at this moment, you could feel fairly, you obviously don't want that to happen, but you could feel fairly decent about Tommy Carr stepping in. And when you look ahead to the future of, well, what do the next 2-3 years look like for Michigan? Well, that's a pretty good guy to have in the fold if you can keep him there. So Tommy Carr was very impressive to me. Obviously, some of the guys that you would expect, the Jordan Marshalls and folks of that nature. Savion Hyder would be the other easy one. And again, this is, if you're here for like hot take analysis, you will occasionally get that. Sometimes the low hanging fruit is the fruit.
Breaking news: good football player, good.
Top running back talent, good at running. But he was. I mean, he looked really good. He's strong. I mean, it's always weird to me when they're like, let's talk about his quads. I'm like, that's
the
weird.
amount of times I heard them refer to his legs as tree trunks was a little bit uncomfortable.
But I mean, comparing him to guys like Saquon Barkley, just like the way, obviously you have to earn that, but the way that he's built, he's a bit of a taller running back, but man, I mean, just watching him run, that's Michigan football.
Does not look like a true freshman whatsoever. And
so you're looking at having for Michigan, who prides itself on the running game. And obviously we've talked in prior podcasts about how, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust format is not going, like, that can be your bread and butter, but you've got to do more than that. But if you want to play that smash mouth style of Michigan football, Jordan Marshall and Savion Hyder, that's a pretty good combination there. And again, I would say much like at full health, Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall, I firmly believe at full health last year were the best running back duo in the country.
Yeah, and I would say that as an Ohio State fan.
I would say right now, before we've seen anybody in live game action, Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder, the best running back tandem in the country.
I'm not going to fight you on that.
Thank you. Fantastic.
I'm not going to fight yet. I probably will later.
So
but
those were good things. Celeste Moa, I thought, had a good game. The freshman, former Utah commit who then commits over to Michigan. I thought Jamie French did a nice job, the transfer from Texas. I didn't see as much of him as I would like, but I do think that one of the weapons that you should know if you're just kind of catching up on Michigan transfer portal and all that stuff and the transition from Coach Whittingham and all that is JJ Buchanan. I think it didn't show as much as I would have liked in the spring game, but this is a guy who, every time I say that, I hear Chris Collins. Now here's a guy, JJ Buchanan came to he basically played a wide receiver / tight end position at Utah. And that's kind of what he's going to do at Michigan, but he's officially, I believe, listed as a wide receiver now. So you're going to have Andrew Marsh as the clear, obvious wide receiver one. JJ Buchanan's going to play that secondary role. But when you've got a guy built that way who can also play as a tight end, I mean, it opens up a Swiss Army knife of opportunities for you. JJ Buchanan is one of the guys that I do think that you should know coming out of spring ball of that dude's going to be a weapon. And I'm really excited to watch him play. I can see from the look on your face that you've got negative things you want to say now. So now that I've given you some positives, what are some negative things you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start right where you just left off. I think the wide receiver depth to me is still a concern. And I feel like we have this conversation with Michigan every single season. And I'm looking at this because I watched the game. And outside of Andrew Marsh, we saw what he could do last year, except against Ohio State when he did nothing.
It's kind of also, if you're not targeted, it's kind of hard to do much.
Well,
anyway,
it goes both ways. Yeah. So you're looking at Andrew Marsh. You know what you're going to get out of him. Yep. Who's going to step up and be that guy?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was solidified to me looking at that. I know Jamie French had a good game. I don't feel comfortable as either of those guys. I mean, I feel comfortable as an Ohio State guy.
Yeah.
But if I was a Michigan fan, nobody else really jumped off the page to me as, okay, I see it now.
Yeah,
this is a clear-cut number one guy
I mean,
or number two guy.
Yeah, and that's where I do believe that J.J. Buchanan's going to be the guy, and Whittingham has said as much, where he said, Andrew Marsh is obviously, Andrew Marsh and J.J. Buchanan are the first two guys, and then you're going to have the guys like Jamie French, you're going to have Jamar Browder, you're going to have Celeste Moa, you're going to have these other guys that are going to compete.
It's going to have to be a production by committee versus like what Ohio State's had in the past, where Carnell Tate might get 1,000 and Jeremiah gets 1,000, and then it's a big gap between them.
And they're two different styles of play too, right? Where Ohio State and I'll say this objectively, at their best, Ohio State lets their horses be their horses, right? Michigan at their best lets their horses be their horses too. Ohio State, it's a little bit more. Why it's not, maybe not a little bit, it's more wide receiver heavy, where you're like, if I can get enough production from the running game to allow me to continue to pass, obviously, yes, the running game opens up the pass. I understand. Okay. But if I have to respect the run at least a bit, then that opens up your passing game too, in a sense. Michigan is just the more traditional way of, we're going to run the ball, but we've got to have some wide receiver production. I think that they're in good shape for that. They've also still got Hogan Hansen, who's finally back to being healthy, a more traditional tight end. Obviously, with some injuries, we saw guys like Zach Marshall and Deacon Tonelli get in there. The tight end room is really deep as well. JJ Buchanan, whether you want to put him in the wide receiver camp or the tight end camp, I feel pretty good about that. I feel really good about the running game. I feel pretty good actually about the wide receivers, and the quarterback is going to be the big question, right? Because last year, obviously, I think in hindsight, it is, some of us would say, I told you this during the season. However,
but did I?
Every
single week.
But did I say it?
You can make a whole compilation video of my rivalry highlights.
But Bryce was underwhelming. I mean, I don't think that you can.
That might be the first time I've heard you say it out loud.
No, I mean, I said it at the end of the season. I think you can look back and go, you know what? That was underwhelming. I also think it's fair to say that there were a number of mitigating, let's call them mitigating factors.
Sure.
Between Sharon's stuff and also the fact that Michigan did not have a dedicated sole quarterback coach for a kid who turned 18, 10 days before the season started, was probably not expected to be the starter until, Mikey King gets hurt in the spring. So there's going to be all that to say. There's both no excuses and also there are some circumstances that make sense. Go ahead.
I wanted to hit on Bryce a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not to throw him off, because I've done enough of my.
No, you want to do
myself,
more.
But I want to. I'm going to refrain.
Yeah. God bless you.
What's your thought walking away? Because I've read the message boards from Michigan fans. Because
I wouldn't recommend that.
Obviously, I have my own bias opinion on stuff. But I don't think that he looked any different to me. And I know you're getting such a small sample size.
Sure. No, I mean, listen, you can have a wrong opinion. That's fine.
The throwing mechanics weren't there. They looked the same. And I know that you guys brought in a dedicated quarterback coach to help. And I didn't see anything from that. He was 3 of 9, 22 yards, made 0 explosive plays. I know you're not obviously going to run, so you took his legs away because of course you are.
Yeah.
And so
please don't hit $10 million quarterback.
Yes, but what just continues to baffle me is the investment in that guy, but then the lack of investment on surrounding talent around him. Where I'm looking and I'm going, Andrew Marsh is a clear number one receiver. I think he can grow into that. I don't know if I would place him there yet. He is right now on the team, but I think he's the most explosive player as a wide receiver option, and it's by a mile.
Yeah.
I know that you guys brought in some 4-star guys. Just watching that game, I just didn't walk away going, here are guys that I'm really excited about. There are guys that I looked at and I thought, sure, that serviceable. Yes, it's the whole production by committee idea of he might go and get you 1,000 yards this year, but then you're going to have 5 or 6 other guys that are going to be between the 200 to 300 yards, and that's going to be it. And compared to like an Ohio State where you're going to have 2,000-yard guys, and then you're going to have a 400 and a 500-yard guy or something like that. Like the production's just going to have to be spread out because there's not clear guys that are going to be that number 2 fill. And so I'm looking and I'm just going, I understand Michigan's bread and butter is the run game. They're obviously heavily investing in that in the offensive line, which is going to be really good again. You got the best running back duo in the nation. I would agree with that even before they played a snap. I would say right now on paper, they're probably the best. So it's clear what the game plan's going to be.
Sure.
But you make such a big investment in this guy, and I don't see any improvement from any of his throwing mechanics. The accuracy was still not there. You still have wide receivers dropping a lot of his passes still, even when he's getting it to him. He's still not making the best decisions. There was one where he made a throw and it was dropped, but it was still not the best. It was still double coverage. And so I'm looking at that, and I know that it's limited time working with this guy. He's going to grow and develop, hopefully more. I just didn't walk away from that going, this is a guy that's $10 million, that is clear QB1. And this is where I know you're going to disagree with me. And I'm not even fully saying it, but the whole time I watched that, all I could think of was a couple of years ago, you and I went to the Michigan spring game together. And before the season, every single person in this universe was sitting there going, Alex Orji is QB1. And it's not even close. And you and I walked out of that stadium and we thought, it might be. Davis Warren looked pretty dang good. And then guess who was the best quarterback on that roster that year? Davis Warren. And guess who gave them the best chance every single Saturday to win the game, even though it was never pretty? Davis Warren. And I felt the same way watching this game, where I thought nobody from the Michigan standpoint is going to agree with me because you're paying $10 million for Bryce Underwood. Tommy Carr gives you the best chance on Saturday to win a football game right now.
See, you're right. Nobody's going to agree with that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Here's
I don't fully believe it myself.
Correct. I can tell. I can tell. You just like to get the people going. Yeah. So here's where let me tell you, here's where I'm at. I don't think that everything that you're saying is nonsense, believe it or not.
That's the first.
I didn't say that there's not a lot of it. I just said not everything.
I need to keep adding?
No, you don't. No,
we have a lot.
It's one of those things where I don't know that you are completely off, because would I like to have seen more from Bryce in the spring game? Yeah, I would. Am I going to hit the panic button of nothing has changed? No, I'm not, because the season ended 3 months ago? You've got 5-6 months before the regular season starts. You're still getting into new coaching. You're still getting chemistry with new players. I'm not too worried about that. Is there some concern about, man, I would have liked to have seen more in whether it's the mechanics, their accuracy, or whatever? Yeah, because at this point, you do have a full season under your belt, and I'm not trying to make light, but yes, there were the Sharon stuff and the mitigating circumstances and all that stuff, but also you now have a full season under your belt. Would I like to have seen more strides be evident on Saturday? Yes. You also played 10 minutes of a spring practice. And we're talking about practice, man. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it in one sense. You do want to, if he comes out that way, let me put it this way. If he comes out that way and in the first game, the stat line is comparable, obviously he'll probably pass more than 9 times, but if it's a 3 of 9 or whatever, comparable across the course of a game type thing, and he looks that way against Western, or he looks that way against Oklahoma, let's say Oklahoma week 2, now I'm concerned.
Okay, yeah, because in my mind, if Western Michigan, he's going to look good enough.
If you go 8 for 21 for 113 yards against Oklahoma, now I'm concerned. I'll put that out in the universe.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I think
I'm
that's
not
valid.
Concerned about it. I'm not worried about. Well, Tommy Carr should be.
I don't want to say here. Let me backtrack slightly. Yeah. I'm not sitting here saying Bryce deserves to lose the QB1 spot, but I'm not so sold that it's not at least getting a little warm.
Well, you should, regardless of whether you're paying a kid $10 million or $2 million or whatever. If the goal is, and this is where I fully believe this also from Witt and the staff. We can call him Witt now, right?
You guys are boys.
We're boys. We go way back to December.
I call him
Dub Ham. No, I don't care for that.
Dub Ham.
I really hate that. Now you've ruined my entire train of God, I hate this podcast.
Let's go.
Okay. But if the goal is to get the best chance to win, then any coaching staff, and I think especially a veteran coach like Whittingham, is going to allow whatever quarterback is on the depth chart. you're competing for reps with the ones, right? Like you're competing for the starting job. Maybe it goes into the season if there's not clear separation. Maybe it's a Cade McNamara, JJ McCarthy situation. Now, I'm not suggesting that should be the case, that is the case. But all that I'm saying in that is that I both don't expect Tommy Carr to really push for QB1 reps, but also if we get into fall ball and he's more consistent and he gives you a better chance to win, then yeah. Because it doesn't matter what the name is or what the money amount is, who is giving me the best chance to win. I fully believe that's Bryce Underwood, but I don't think that we should write off Tommy Carr as like, well, he's, Bryce, you don't have to worry about your job. No, every single, if you're a good football team, a great football team, every single position is fully open at all times.
I saw people, this just shows how insane fan bases are, because even after the Ohio State spring game, the amount of people that were sharing clips of Tavian St. Clair saying this is who QB1 should be because he's a bigger body and has a big cannon is just ridiculous. So
correct. Yeah.
While I don't think Bryce Underwood probably should be torn down the depth chart for Tommy Carr, I do think the seat got a little hotter on Saturday. Not that it's, If he's not there,
I don't buy that. But I think here's where we agree, because we disagree there. Where we agree is at any point on your football team, every spot is open.
Unless you're Jeremiah Smith.
Even Jeremiah Smith's spot. Okay, you're right. Okay,
Yeah,
not every
valid.
spot.
I do have one question for you though.
Yeah, and then I want to mention defense real quick.
Yeah. So you share your defense, because this is kind of an overall team question.
Yeah. Okay, so defensively, I think this is actually where, much like Ohio State, I think Michigan's going to have more questions this year. And I don't know if that's surprising. You're losing guys like Derek Moore, Jayshon Barham, Ernest Hausman and that whole thing. And obviously Moore has come out about that. I hope his mental health, gets to where it needs to be, all that good stuff. But you're losing Jimmy Rolder as well. Like you're losing a lot of pieces either to the draft or just to other things. And so what's that going to look like? And one area that I've just been really, really encouraged by for Michigan is the coaching staff seems to be of the belief that defensive line is going to be an anchor of this team. And that was a big question. That was a big question for this team of who's going to step in, and guys like, is it Nate Marshall? See, there's too many Marshalls here. But the coaching staff is firmly of the belief that that's going to be an anchor of that line, and that's good to hear, because that was one of the big areas that I had questions about. Guys like Jair Hill on the back end, at the corner position. Jair Hill has had his ups and downs. You've seen kind of the flashes here and there. You've seen the problems. He really had a pretty darn good year last year, and they have been really talking him up this spring, saying he has taken even more strides, can be a really good player. And you've got Zeke Berry out there as well. Michigan's secondary seems like they're going to be in really good position this year. I think I still have questions at the linebacker position, which is obviously extremely important. Guys like Nate Owosu-Boateng, where does he play in? Bowles, where does he play in? And so I've got Michigan still has questions, but I think it's encouraging coming out of the spring game, getting to watch it, getting to listen to it, whatever. And how the coaching staff are talking about it, because it doesn't feel like a lot of coach speak. I get the feeling from Whittingham that he's just kind of like, yeah, this is the way it is. And that's really refreshing. Harbaugh was the same way, but Harbaugh was just such an odd duck that it was hard to sometimes piece through. Like, he's telling it like it is, but also I have no idea what we're talking about right now. Whittingham's more like, yeah, this guy's going to be really good. Here's the two guys who are at the top. I don't know who's next. We'll find out. I like that. I like that in a coach. So I think defense still has questions, but I feel more confident about the defense post-spring game than I did pre-spring game.
So talking more about Whittingham, obviously your first real chance to get to see what this team looks like under him. Yeah. What are your takeaways? How did they look different? What are some similarities that you're like, okay, this doesn't really feel like it changed, which is a good thing or maybe a bad thing?
Well, I think Utah plays we said this when he was hired. I think Utah naturally plays a very similar style of football to Michigan. It is built in, and again, I get like, well, all football's built from the trenches. Okay, but there are teams that lean on that more than others. And Utah naturally played that very similar style to Michigan. And so I do think that you will see very similar Michigan styles. We talked about the running back room and how things are going to go through them. One area that I'm excited that it seems like most of the folks around Schembechler Hall are pretty confident in, because the coaches have said as much, comes back to Bryce. And it is, number one, it's the dedication on he's making big strides, but we've got Witt said this in the pregame, in the pre-spring game. He said he's made a lot of strides this spring. We've got a long way to go still. But talking about his mechanics, talking about his release points, talking about those fundamental things that take raw talent into a molded talent, take a good player to being a great player. But one of the things on top of that, besides the mechanics, is that they are very intentionally designing things to utilize his legs, which was one of my low-hanging fruit, was one of my biggest gripes last year. Was you have a quarterback who that's what he does. He is designed to be, he is built like it. He's designed to be a dual threat quarterback. And we saw it in the Oklahoma game where they were afraid to get him hurt. We're not going to let him, we can't let him lose the game, so we're not going to let him win the game. I don't think you're going to see that from this team. I think you're going to see some of the way that they use Cam Rising, some of the way that they use Devin Dampier. They're going to utilize Bryce in a way that at the very least now gives you, what I've, kind of this, not an actual triple option play, but it should give you a triple option where I got to account for, Jordan Marshall or Savion Hyder running the ball. I got to account for Bryce throwing the ball out here to Buchanan or to Marsh. Now I also have to pause and think about what if Bryce keeps it. And if you can get that little bit of hesitation, it's not that simple, but in some ways it is. If you get that little bit of hesitation from a defense, players at this level will torch you. So I'm excited to see some of that. On the defensive side, and again, this is not an X's and O's podcast. You can go other places for that. If you haven't been able to tell yet, we said things like 5-star freshman good at ball. Okay, that's how this works. But it seems like, and I've got to think through the new stuff. Jay Hill. It seems like the defense for Michigan is going to play not Wink Martindale's defense. That's very exciting for me.
Which in and of itself.
But he's going to throw, it seems like they are, and they did in the spring game because they're like, we're going to stay in this basic form and all that stuff. It seems like they are going to show a lot of stunts and a lot of rotation and a lot of switching, but not in a way that's too difficult for these college players to handle. That's some of where Wink got into trouble, besides like lining up player Mason Graham on the edge or dropping him into coverage. What are we doing? But it seems like in a way that college athletes can pick up on, there's going to be a lot more of that movement, which does what? Makes it very difficult for quarterbacks. Makes it very difficult, especially for young quarterbacks, to figure out the pre-snap, like, well, wait, what's going on here? I mean, we saw Bryce get confused on against teams that did a lot of this stuff too, because he's used to looking at one thing, and then if you shift it, well, now what? Especially on the road. All those things are going to matter. So I'm very excited about that in particular on the defensive side of the ball. Special teams, I'm just excited to have a special teams coordinator who looks like they know what they're doing. Kerry Coombs looks like he knows what he's doing. It sounds like Andrew Marsh is going to be the returner again. I like that. We also had a kicker shank a really easy field goal, so that's not exciting for me. We need...
Does that mean I no longer have to hear Zvada Bing Zvada?
Zvada Bing Zvada Boom is dead, unfortunately. Yes. I'll find something else. It'll
be
be great.
Monday of my life.
When I said Michigan needs to go get another Dominic Zvada, I clearly meant Dominic Zvada from not last year, but the years prior.
That's fair. Clone him and bring him back.
Also, I think we have a punter now, which is also just fantastic.
You're going to need it.
Hudson Hollenbeck, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Bryce Underwood goes 3 of 9. You're going to be punting a lot.
I hate you so much. Oh, okay. What was your overall? Was that your overall team question?
Yep.
Fantastic. I'll say this in closing. I wasn't really ready for, believe it or not, I wasn't feeling like I wasn't in the college football mode yet. Heading into the spring game. I'm there. I'm there now. I'm ready. Like, we could kick off the season tomorrow. Please. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to hate watch some teams. I'm ready to buy some Ball State gear for week 1. It's going to be absolutely fantastic.
My Fighting Tater shirt's ready.
I am so sorry about this podcast. Also, please subscribe to it wherever you subscribe to your podcasts and at RivalPod and RivalPod.com. The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media at RivalPod and RivalPod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.